Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we got part 57 of our Planet Zoo Mods showcase, where we take a look at some of the wonderful animals we share our world with. And today, we got a lot of fishes today, so it's almost like the third revolution of fish, so it's the fish revolution. So these 5 fish that I'm going to be showing were all made by Reef and Buffzoo. I believe they're ports from all sorts of different games, such as like Fishing Planet and Man-Eater and Beyond Blue, for example. Some really good games with lots of good fish models, so they clearly showed them off there. So we're going to be starting off today with the Gaff topsail Catfish. So a really cool little catfish that we got going on here. Again, done by Reef and Buffzoo. Wonderful little fellow he's got going on here. So these guys are typically found in waters of like the west central Atlantic Ocean, as well as the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. And another weird thing that sets them apart, they have these very long venomous spines that can cause pretty painful wounds, actually, where they often, obviously, if someone catches, they've got this reputation as kind of like a very hardy lure fish, and strong fighters as well. So also with the spines, that can cause a lot of really nasty wounds, so you got to be careful when fishing for these guys. Let's see one that's swimming. Let's see if we find one. There's one over there swimming. Really cool little guy here. So these guys, similar to other catfish, they feed on a lot of crustaceans, other fish, and they're mouth brooders. So what will happen is that the male of the species will kind of fertilize the eggs for the female and brood them in his mouth until they hatch. And these guys will feed throughout the water column, unlike a lot of catfish. They're quite common in the southeastern US, although they can be found as far north as New York. And they can be taken, in terms of fishing, they can be taken from reefs, piers, jetties, things like that. And they are usually caught with hard lures as well as soft plastic lures, and they actually use traps as well to catch these guys. Still really cool animals regardless. So in terms of their kind of look, they have this blue-grey to dark brown colors with like this light grey belly, which is very interesting, and these very venomous serrated spines, as I mentioned before. They also, typical length for these guys is about 17 inches or 43 centimeters, and this pelvic fin you see is 6 to 12 inches or 15 to 30 centimeters, and they also have these big bardules as well. And we don't know really the diet of the babies, but it's believed to be fed on like plankton and stuff. But these guys are a lot more generalist. They'll feed all through the water column. So they'll feed on worms, other invertebrates, bony fish, and in terms of the predators, which includes humans, they can be fed on by tiger sharks and bull sharks. And in terms of the habitat, they spawn over like intertidal mud flats during a relatively short time of about 10 days. From May to August, and they are mouth brooders, as I mentioned, and the eggs usually are about 1 inch in diameter, and the males can keep up to 55 eggs in their mouth, and young are about 5 centimeters or 2 inches when they hatch, and the male may continue to brood until they are 4 centimeters long, and the male does not feed while he's carrying these eggs, so he kind of also gets a little bit leaner and meaner. But yeah, really cool fish here, really cool fish to talk about. Came out pretty well. Really nice model as well, I'm a big fan. So that's our, what's it, Gaff Top's Catfish. So yeah, a bit of a mouthful to say. But now that was done by Reef and Buffzoo, as long as all these guys over here. So now we're going to move on to our next animal. A little bit more famous, we have got the European Flounder. So really cool guy over here. Let's have a look at it. So this is the European Flounder, which is a flatfish that is found around European coastal waters such as White Sea, also the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and also been introduced into the United States and Canada accidentally through ballast water, and it can be caught and used and eaten by people, like a lot of fish are. These guys are typically quite oval in shape, as you see here, and they're usually right-eyed, so they kind of have their right eye up here, and the left one kind of moves up here. The upper surface, as you can see, there's usually dull brown or potentially reddish spots, and they kind of use that as a really effective camouflage so they don't stick out. And also the outline helps as well, the silhouette. And the underside is, as we can try to see, is like pearly white, which gives them another one of their common names, the white fluke. And in terms of their size, a maximum recorded length is about 60 centimeters or 24 inches, with a maximum weight of about 2.93 kilograms, 6.5 pounds, though a more usual length is about 50 centimeters. So that one was pretty much a giant. And you can see they swim laterally, so they pretty much lay on one side and rest on one side. And during development, they usually have a normal, like, one eye each side, but during development, like, their left eye will kind of migrate onto its right side there. So it's very interesting to see that develop. And in terms of the habitat, they typically, as I mentioned, live around the northeastern Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. So live in the White Sea, Turkey, the Black Sea, and also North African coasts. And they're normally found in low shore down to depths of about 100 meters on like sandy or muddy bottoms. That allows them to really take advantage of their camouflage so they don't get spotted. In terms of their biology, they live and feed near the seabed where they kind of rest. And they are mainly nocturnal, and during the day they'll rest down there. And in terms of their food, they typically feed on whenever they get their mouths around, such as like benthic invertebrates such as shrimps, worms, mollusks, and small fish. And they actually leave the freshwater in autumn and cannot be found in estuaries when the first frosts occur. And the fish will then move to deeper waters within the winter. And in spring, they'll migrate to their spawning grounds, so they travel 3 to 4 miles per day. And then they will spawn between February and May in more northerly latitudes. And they release about 1 million eggs into the water. And when these babies are born, they kind of are platonic, so they kind of drift around and feed on plankton. And juvenile flounders will live in the shallow waters, estuaries, and rivers with that's like low salinity. And then once they become mature, at about 11 centimeters long, and the females were 18, they kind of move out and move into deeper waters. So that's pretty cool. And in terms of the human interaction, they are not highly esteemed, but they are obviously fed, and they can. And it seems like males that are found in polluted estuaries can also produce gestarones and things like that, which can be pretty bad for them. And in terms of their status, and same with the Catfish, they're both quite common fish. As I mentioned, they are least concerns, so there's no threats of their extinction, though things like pollution and climate change can really affect the local populations. And it seems like in places such as the Gulf of Finland, the European flounder has been nearly completely extirpated, so that leaves the Baltic flounder as kind of the predominant species. It really just depends. But yeah, really cool animals here. I really liked how they came out. It's nice to see them swimming around. Again, done by Reef and Buffzoo. Next animal we've got going on, we've got the coral grouper. So also known as the coral hind or the coral trout, even though they're not really a trout. They look really nice though. How can you not love a good fish like this? So these guys typically have a body that's 2 to 3 times as long as it is deep, and they will typically attain a maximum length of about 50 centimeters or 20 inches. And they kind of get their name, the coral grouper, because they typically hang out in coral reefs and things, but they've also got this really, really interesting color to them, which could potentially be to help them camouflage. They're like a bright orange to red with these really nice contrasting blue spots to them, which I think is really, really cool. And in terms of their habitat, they're pretty much found widely across the Indo-Pacific Ocean. So they can be found in the Red Sea in South Africa, and can be found in northern Australia, a lot of islands in the Indian Ocean, a lot of those. Lord Howe is kind of the more easterly part of their range, so Lord Howe. And they're typically found in these clear waters that are coastal and offshore, and especially they prefer exposed rather than protected areas, and can often be seen in caves and ledges and things. And they're found typically at depths of about 2 to 150 meters, or 6.6 to 492.1 feet deep. And they are, like other groupers, they're quite predatory, so over 80% of their diet is small fish, such as sea goldies, which they ambush by their coral hides and things. and the remainder of their diet is also typically crustaceans. And in terms of breeding, they kind of form harems consisting of a single male up to 12 females, and the male will defend his harem's territory, which is about 475 square meters, or about 5,000 square feet. And each female will have a smaller territory which he defends from other females. These guys are protogenous hermaphrodites, so that means they will change sex from male to female. Female to male, so they're born female, and then as they get bigger they will turn into a male. And the male will patrol his territory and visit each female and greet them, and obviously mate with them when he gets a chance, and all that. So yeah, really, really cool fish. Also considered least concern, since they are quite wide-ranging and quite common, though there is issues obviously with coral bleaching and things that could affect their populations with lots of other fish. Really, really cool animal there. Again, done by Reef and Buffzoo, as I probably need to say again and again until the end of the episode. But next, we've got another cool fish here. We have got the Goliath Tigerfish. So this is a really cool fish. These guys are very, very large predatory fish from Africa. So these guys are typically found in the Congo River Basin and Lake Tanganyika, though there are believed to be other species of these guys, such as like undescribed species of tigerfish from the other areas, which used to be lumped into the Goliath tigerfish. Really, really wonderful animals, though. They're quite large tooth. You can see here they get the name tigerfish from these huge teeth that they've got. So they get on average about 1.5 meters long, or 4 foot 9 inches, and they weigh about 50 kilos or 110 pounds. And they have these really large teeth that can grow up to 1 inch long, or 2.5 centimeters. And according to Jeremy Wade, the largest recorded specimen is weighed about 70 kilos. They are also the largest member of their family, and they actually also have the name the Mbenga, which means the dangerous fish in Swahili, so that's also really cool. In terms of their diet, these guys are piscivores, so they feed on any fish they can really overpower, such as smaller conspecific fish. And when hunting, they use calmer eddies and the rapids to ambush their prey, and using their sight to detect their prey. And when a target is noticed, they will chase it down and attack it. And the only known predator of mature Goliath tigerfish are Nile crocodiles. And in terms of the interaction with humans, as I mentioned, they have the Mbenga, where they have been known to attack people. And also they have a reputation for being strength, and also almost like among people that are really into angling, they have this mythical status of being like one of the greatest freshwater game fish in the world. So that's very, very nice honor to have. But they are considered least concern. They're still quite common. That's also very good. And I think they're really rather beautiful, even though they look big and mean. Look at these wonderful teeth. Cool predators. Very important. And last, but most definitely not least, by Reef and Buffzoo, of course, we have got the Whitetip reef shark. So really cool shark here. Oh, let's see if we can find it. There we are. So these guys are a species of requiem shark found in the family Carcharodontine, and is the only known member of its genus, which is Trinanodon obesus, I believe you pronounced that. They're a small shark. They typically don't get more than 1.6 meters or 5 foot 2 feet in length, and they're kind of easily recognizable because of their long body, and they also have these kind of white tips on the end of their fins. That's where they get the name the Whitetip reef shark. And they're different from the oceanic whitetip because these guys are much longer, and they're typically found in reefs, though oceanic whitetips typically have that much more typical shark shape and live out more in the open ocean. These guys are also one of the most common sharks found in coral reefs around the Indo-Pacific, and they can reach as far west as Africa and far east as Central America, so they kind of live all across that area. And they're typically found in near the bottom in clean waters from depths of 8 to 40 meters, or 2,631 feet. So during the day, these guys typically spend most of the time resting inside caves, though unlike other sharks, that they rely on ram ventilation, so they must continually swim to breathe. These guys can actually pump water over its gills and lie on the bottom, so unlike a lot of other sharks, these guys can like sit still and chill, since they're ambush predators. Though then during the day they'll sit this and relax, but at night is when they really start to hunt. They'll emerge and feed on pretty much anything that they can find, such as bony fish, crustaceans, octopus, and they do that in groups. with their long bodies allowing them to squeeze into any holes like something where an octopus can and try and catch some prey. So it's very, very interesting to see how well they do. And individuals may stay within a particular area of a reef for months, where they will kind of hang out in the same shelter. And in terms of their breeding, these guys are considered viviparous. So that means they develop the embryos and are sustained by a placental connection to the mother, almost like a placental mammal would, so like a human. Though some sharks have some variation on this. In terms of their size, as I mentioned, they typically get about 1.6 meters or 5'2", but they also have been records of ones that are like over 2 meters long, but that's pretty dubious. The maximum recorded weight is about 18.3 kilos, or about 40 pounds. In terms of their behavior and ecology, as I mentioned, in terms of mating, the males will have claspers and then release pheromones into the water to try and get the female into them and all that. They have a gestation period of about 10 to 13 months, with females giving birth to 1 to 6 babies, or usually 2 to 3, or pups as they're called. The number of offspring often correlates with her size, and it can, since their range is so large, they often can vary what times of year they will breed. So in some places they'll breed around August in like French Polynesia, but in other places like October in Australia, for example. Newborns can measure about 52 to 60 centimeters long, and they reach sexual maturity at about 1.1 meters at an age of 8 to 9 years old. And some places they will grow slower, such as the Great Barrier Reef. They can live up to like 14 years for females and 19 years and believe the maximum lifespan can be up to 25 years. And they also be known to reproduce asexually, so that means a female can just make a little clone of herself, which is pretty cool. Let's see if we can find one that's not wanting to go up there. Where are you? We'll hang out with you, wonderful little shark. So in terms of human interactions, they're considered vulnerable because they are mostly harmless, but they often are steal catches from spearfishers and can be shot with a spear gun, and often find that. Also, they've been taken by fisheries for like shark fin soups, and also get caught in like long lines, gill nets, and trawlers. And they're actually pretty, in certain areas, they're pretty susceptible to Cicada poisoning, which is, especially in their liver, which is obviously where it collects. They're considered vulnerable because their numbers have decreased because of unregulated fishing. And also being a shark, which often has quite a restricted habitat, also low dispersal rate and slow reproduction, means they have a limit to recovering from overfishing. And also in the Great Barrier Reef, populations of white sharks in fishing zones have been reduced to 80%. So that's pretty big, and also poaching is a big thing. Though they are pretty wonderful little guys, so we don't want to see them around. A lot of people give sharks a bad rap, especially like great white sharks, and people think, oh, they're going to eat me, but these guys are just little puppies. How cute are they? I do like myself a little white-tip reef shark. So the white-tip reef shark, as we mentioned here, all standing on land getting a feed, along with all these fish here, the gaff top catfish, also the flounder, European flounder, the coral grouper, the Goliath tigerfish, and the white-tip reef shark were all done by Reef and Buffzoo. Making sure you get that through. I want to make sure everyone is credited because of their wonderful ability. And now we're going to move on to some land animals. So we are going to be starting with the Ballast Box, which is a subspecies, or kind of the dominant subspecies, I believe, other subspecies of kind of the Ballast Box. They're kind of two subspecies of the same thing. So here's a wonderful look at the guy here. I think this is the male. Well, no, it's a female. Where's the male? We often like to show off the male because he's often the most impressive. Here we are. So these guys are found only in South Africa, Eswatini, and Namibia, and they have this distinctive white forehead that you can see here, which gives the name because Bels is the Afrikaans word for blaze, and kind of look like what you'd see in a horse. So these guys in mass can be up to about 85 kilograms, and as I mentioned, they carry a 6 spot, but they also have this kind of brownish coat with like a white underside. Very interesting looking antelope. In terms of their body length, they can reach 140 to 160 centimeters, or 4'6" to 5'2". Show at a height about 85 to 100 centimeters. or 2 foot to 3 foot. Tail length of about 40 to 50 centimeters, 30 to 45 or 12 to 18 inches. And weight, an average male gets about 70 kilograms, and a female on average is lower, about 61 kilograms. But they do range between 55 and 80 kilograms, so 121 to 136 pounds. So in terms of their habitat, they typically live in open plains around Namibia, South Africa, and Eswatini, and they prefer open grasslands that are quite full of water. And they typically have small territories of a little under half an acre, a little over half an acre. But they can be up to 2.5 acres as their largest. And actually considered one of the most abundant species on the African plains. They used to be, but they became quite scarce because of relentless poaching for their skin and meat during 1893. Though trophy hunting has helped them survive in areas where they've been hunted legally as well. Illegally, I mean. So they are doing quite well. The Ballast Box is a seasonal breeder where they rut during March and May, and they'll give birth during November and December with a gestation period of about 240 days, or 8 months. And females will give birth to a single calf per season. So these guys are considered least concern. And their main predators include humans, lions, leopards, wild dogs, cheetahs, jackals and eagles, males, so attack calves as well. Kind of everything you expect to be eating them on the savannah. We'll have a look at the female while we have a look, and then she's a little darker. Really, really nice, beautiful animal though. And they've often hunted and farmed for trophies, similar to a lot of other African hoofstock. But they're also quite shy and alert. They are known for their endurance, and they can attain a speed of 70 kilometers an hour, 43 miles per hour when chased. And they're quite good jumpers. And a little bit on their paleontology, because I'm a big fan of paleontology, as you know. A prehistoric relative was found in deposits in Scherfolten, which was quite a bit bigger, with an approximate weight of about 120 kilograms, so quite a bit bigger than the modern Ballast Box, but they also had slightly bigger horns. And these guys were believed to become extinct at the end of the Pleistocene, about 12,000 years ago. But yeah, it's sad that we lost those, but it's cool that we didn't lose these guys to rampant poaching. But yeah, really beautiful animals. So this guy was done by Reef and Mark, who's been really doing some wonderful mods. I've seen the progress that he's been making on some like Black Rhino and Eland and stuff. So that'll be coming in the future, and I'll be really excited to show that off. So yeah, Mark did a wonderful job. Next animal, we've got something by Narwhal. We have the Desert Warthog. So look at these wonderful fellows here. So these guys are related, they are related to the common warthog. There's two different species. These guys are normally found in more northern areas. They're found in Somalia, Kenya, and Ethiopia. And there is another subspecies of these guys called the Cape Warthog that went extinct in 1865 that used to live in South Africa. But fossils have been found in the Holocene from these two species, and there's kind of been some mDNA suggests that East African populations of warthogs, previously thought to be variants of the common warthog, are in fact surviving members of these guys, so that's very, very interesting. They believe that the Cape Warthog is actually not extinct now, so that's also really cool. Also considered least concern, their conservation's pretty good. Wonderful big male there. These guys are quite stocky, as you can see, growing to an average length of about 125 centimeters, or 49 inches, and weigh up to about 75 kilograms, 165 pounds. With males, as you can see, being quite a bit larger than the females. And they have, like other warthogs, they have like these big protruding warts and tusks and things that really give them a cool and gnarly look. And they generally have a color of like mid to dark brown, or sometimes whitish or grayish. And they differ from the bush pig and the giant forest hog by having these warts, and also having proportionally much larger tusks. And the main way these guys can be told apart from the common warthog is they have distinct facial features, such as the curved back tips of their ears, also lax of incisors, and they have generally a larger snout. So that's one of the ways that you can kind of distinct them apart. And these guys typically come from the Horn of Africa, with their range extending down to southeastern Ethiopia and central Kenya, with the extinct subspecies, quote-unquote, the Cape Warthog used to live in the Cape Province and the approximate, Natal Province, but became extinct in 1871, apparently. And they typically live in open countryside, such with woodland and scattered trees, Scandi plains, but not upland areas. They don't really like upland areas. They don't like. In terms of behaviour, they're not too different from other warthogs. They're diurnal and they're herbivorous. In groups, they kind of older females lead the groups if they forage for grasses, where they'll eat pretty much anything. But they will also eat carrion and insects when they get the chance, and also eat dung as well if they get the chance. They're quite generalist, but they are mainly herbivorous. We'll talk about the babies while They come to estrus every 6 weeks in the breeding season, which is usually at the end of the raining season, between March and May. They frequently... gestation period's about 170 days, and usually a small litter of 2 to 3 piglets are born. And once they are born, they kind of wean 3 months or so after being born, but they're still dependent on their mother for about several months after. She takes care of them. She obviously defend them from predators and teach them how to be adult warthogs. And they have specific grunts they're also able to use to kind of distinguish danger, which is pretty cool. And they can travel for short distances, such as 55 kilometers per hour or 34 miles per hour, to reach the safety of one of their burrows, since they will dig burrows. And the young will dive head first, but the older animals reverse direction and back in so they can defend the babies with their tusks. And the juveniles reach sexual maturity at about 1 to 1.5 years old, and their life expectancy can be for 10 years or more, so they're quite long-lived and really cool. There's a little thing about them as well. They were actually experimentally infected with African swine fever, and it showed that warthogs are actually pretty resistant to this infection. They have no external signs, but they remained ineffective to domestic pigs for at least 33 days. So this was very interesting, and also being an important host for the tsetse fly, which no one really likes. And in terms of their conservation, they're considered least concern. They are common in some parts of the range, and their population is thought to be pretty stable, so that's good. And they often occur in a bunch of wildlife sanctuaries and natural parks, that they face no sophisticated threats from bushmeat and things like that. And they also face competition at water holes from livestock. But yeah, really cool animals regardless. So that was done by Narwhal, and our second to last one was also done by Reef. We got a really cute little guy. We have got the greater Bilby. How can you not love these little guys here? So the greater Bilby is often referred to simply as the Bilby, since the lesser Bilby became extinct in the 1950s, sadly. These guys live all across Central Africa, and their range is greatly restricted... not Africa, Australia. Why did I say Africa? Well, let's start with A. But they live around like Central Australia and the deserts, so their range has greatly shrunk because of introduced mammals, such as rabbits and cats and foxes and things like that, which has really hurt their populations. In terms of their characteristics, they get about 29 to 55 centimeters in length, and they have longer tails, softer fur than compared to bandicoots. And they get about 1 to 2.4 kilograms, or about 2.2 to 5.2 pounds. And they are generally the same size as a rabbit, at least the males are. Though a good male in good condition get up to 3.7 kilograms, or 8.2 inches in captivity, with females a little bit smaller at about 0.8 to 1.1 kilograms, or 1.8 to 2.4 pounds. And with these big, lovely ears they've got, they're very, very sensitive with their hearing. And in terms of their habitat, they used to live across 70% of mainland Australia, though they have been restricted in their range because of predators. And they've been known to live in like city parks on like Adelaide. And they've also been recorded living around Perth, but their populations are greatly down because of introduced mammals, as I mentioned, by rabbits and foxes and cats. But what also makes them interesting is that they're very, very excellent burrowers. So they can dig quite extensive tunnel systems with their strong forelimbs, and they have well-developed claws, and they will make several burrows within their home range, and they move between them and use them as shelter. And another thing about them is that the female's pouch will actually sit be backwards, which presents her pouch getting filled with dirt when she's digging. So similar to a wombat. In terms of their diet, they are nocturnal omnivores, and they do not need to drink water, so they get all the moisture from their food. They typically eat lots of insects, termites, seeds, spiders, larvae, fungi, very small animals, quite generous in that regard, where they kind of are like an aardvark. They will kind of scratch in the soil and lick up things with their tongue. In terms of their breeding, they typically live at least 6 years, and some specimens have been known to live up to 10 years. They generally have quite a short estrus of 12 to 14 days, which is one of the shortest among mammals. The young are born at only like 0.6 centimeters long, or 0.25 inches. And they must crawl into their mother's pouch like other marsupials and then stay there. And they will stay there for about 70 to 75 days. And they'll remain in their natal burrow for 2 to 3 weeks before becoming independent. Litters usually consist of 1 to 3 joeys, and females can have up to 4 litters per year in favourable conditions, so they're quite fast breeders. Though they obviously have issues with introduced mammals eating them. They're typically solitary, though they have been known to travel in pairs. These pairs will usually consist of 2 females, and these females will take care of their offspring. They typically have a territory of about 1.5 kilometers, or they travel out much in females, and males will travel up to 5 kilometers. And they'll typically live solitary. And in terms of the conservation status, as I mentioned, they are vulnerable as they are very much hurt by habitat loss, by ranchers and people taking their land. Also introduce feral cats. Not just that, also diseases. And luckily they have been breeding and have been pretty well, and there's been lots of places where they've been introduced, like pest-free fences. So that means cats and foxes can't get in. So that means they are better able to breed, and then they'll kind of use those to help found new populations in other fenced areas or reintroductions or things like that. There's been a lot of conservation efforts to that. And another cool little conservation effort I think was cool. They've been trying to present the Bilby as kind of an alternative to the Easter Bunny by selling chocolate Easter Bilbies. And I kind of wish they'd do that in New Zealand as well. I think that's really cool. And a lot of the proceeds of that were donated to Rabbit Free Australia, which is one of the many plans. Like, if you have Predator Free New Zealand, there's also Fox Free Australia. A lot of these programs are trying to get rid of these invasive species in these places. So kind of the targets at the moment are like rats, stoats, foxes in these areas, and trying to get rid, so the native species have a chance to reproduce and come back again to their obviously pre-introduction numbers, which I think is super cool. And I love Bilbies. Leaf did a really wonderful job with this Bilby. I'm a big fan of Bilbies. Wonderful, 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 I think. So yeah, now we're going to be moving on to our last animal. Last but most definitely not least, we have got by Mergy, we got a remake of her Serval. So really cool guy here. So Servals, these guys are a wildcat that are native to Africa and are kind of rare within the North Africa and the Sahel, but widespread across sub-Saharan Africa, except for the rainforest regions. They occur typically in protected areas, and hunting of these guys is usually regulated or prohibited in some countries. They are the sole member of their genus, and they typically are a small to slender, medium-sized cat that's about 54 to 62 centimeters or 21 to 24 inches at the shoulder, and they generally weigh between 9 to 18 kilograms or 20 to 40 pounds. And you can see they're quite characterized by the small head and this spotted pattern that helps with camouflage. And they also have the longest legs relative to their body size of any cat, which is another interesting thing. In terms of their behavior, they're solitary carnivores, so they're active both during the day and at night, and they typically prey on rodents such as veely rats, small birds, frogs, insects, and reptiles, which they use their way of hunting to catch prey. And they can leap over 2 meters or 6 foot 7 inches above the air, above the ground, and land onto prey using its 4 feet, and will kill them with a bite to the neck, similar to other cats. Let's have a look at the... this is the mother, I believe. Where's the babies? Gotta be the babies in here. Where is it? Oh, in the trade center. So I mustn't have released them, but that's okay. We'll just keep going. I don't want to do that. We got these wonderful guys here. So these guys typically have overlapping home ranges that can get up to 10 to 32 kilometers or 4 to 21 square meters, and they mark them with their feces and saliva. And mating for these guys will typically take place about once or twice a year, and after a gestational period of about 2 to 3 months, a small amount of kittens that I forgot to put in here, unfortunately. They typically have a litter of 1 to 4 babies, or 1 kittens. And typically they are weaned at the age of 1 month, and then they become hunting on their own at about 6 months of age, and they'll leave the mother at the age of 12 months. Really, really cool little guys here. So in terms of their conservation, they are considered least concern, but they are CITES too. So there's some leeway in that. Really, really beautiful animals, I think. So Mergy, I'm really glad that you decided to come back and visit this animal, because I think it's got a really nice glow up. You also did a little bit of rig editing to give it that taller look that really fits the Serval. Servals are really great animals, and I'm glad they did a good job with that. So I think after seeing these wonderful cats, a great place to end the video. So let me just zoom out. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified for anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.